right, good morning, everybody. Today is Tuesday, January 6th, 2015, and this is Before the First Cup with Jules and Zorie here on UCY.TV. Good morning, Zorie. I haven't done that in a while.
Good morning.
It's 13 degrees and snow in here.
Oh, jeez. And I thought it was cold here.
Yeah, it's chilly. I actually had to start a little fire for a little while last night. Just a little one. Burned 2 little logs. It's freezing.
Yeah, I looking somewhere, they were having wind chills at 50 below. I couldn't even imagine being that cold. They say frostbite in seconds.
Oh, is that where DB moved to? Poor DB moved from San Diego, up to somewhere up north. And yesterday when he called in to do the show with Nick, I hear him say it was 10 below. I was like, oh, San Diego to 10 below. That sucks.
Yeah, because it never gets cold in San Diego. I mean, it's just like summer and spring all year long. Yeah. Oh, I couldn't even imagine.
I bet he's shocked.
Yeah. Oh, jeez.
But hey, I guess you got to live a little. I think that was the point.
Yeah. Go experience the freezing cold.
Yeah, go see what it's like to freeze your nibbies off. I'll tell you, it's not fun.
Especially if you don't have the clothes for it.
No, I sure hope. I mean, that's something. Even here, I mean, even with the clothes for it, you're not prepared.
That's true.
You can't. How can you be prepared for 10 degrees?
I don't think you could. I couldn't.
You know, my friend and I were talking about this the one day, how humans, you know, I complain about hot. I am not a hot person. I do not like hot. I do not like sweaty. I do not like humid. It's just miserable, and I complain in the summer. And I really shouldn't, because I do have to agree that I think I hate winter more.
Well, I hate winter more in the winter, but not when it's summer. I don't hate winter.
I do. I still hate winter when it's summer. I'm a fall person, personally.
I like spring.
When it's summer, I'm thinking about fall. When it's winter, yeah, spring. Early spring sucks because it's still too much like
raining.
Winter, sloppy, nasty, cold. But late spring is cool.
Yeah.
Where it's like 70s and fresh and whatever, but yeah, I'm not a cold person, but I definitely think, like, in the grand scheme of things, when you look at evolution, that the human body did not evolve to live in Arctic temperatures.
No, or we'd have hair all over our bodies still.
Well, some people do, but...
Well, that's true.
Some people have evolved for colder climates. Speaking of, that just reminded me of something. Wait a minute. And now I don't remember. It's fleeting gone in a moment because it's early. It is Before the First Cup, people. But if I scroll, I'll see the story. I know what page it's on. What did you talk about being cold? Oh, yeah, runaway emu shocks drivers as it races vehicles in Tel Aviv. An emu in Tel Aviv racing cars on the highway.
You like dogs chase our cars. They had an emu. Oh, that's
I wonder
funny.
if that's what had me dreaming about my cat chasing another cat and jumping over the fence last night. That's weird. I usually don't dream about that, but that's what I was dreaming about when I woke up this morning. My cat that died years ago, mind you.
Wow.
Vinyl, yeah, I don't know what the story was I was thinking of, but I'm sure I'll find it as I scroll. But here's another good one. Vinyl found in McDonald's chicken nuggets in Japan. Sales halted. So, you know, there was I don't eat at McDonald's, and I hope none of you do either, but back a while ago, I remember that they halted all kinds of meat being shipped to McDonald's because they found that the company that was supplying it was actually supplying expired meat. Do you remember that? They were using, like, old meat.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, you know, that wouldn't shock me, I guess. But they changed suppliers, and I guess now this new supplier, which is in Thailand, even better than China, had supplied them. I think it was out of 3 different facilities out of Thailand. Yeah, they closed them all, and somebody found a piece of vinyl in their chicken nugget. So they pulled all the chicken nuggets.
And now they'll go for another one that will, from some other country to provide the meat for.
Yeah, I'd be careful of the Russian chicken nuggets, too.
Yeah. I can't even stand the smell of fast food places anymore. It just doesn't smell like food.
I think I must have been, I don't know what happened yesterday. It was the day of regular WTF news on the UCY page. Because there's another one. A British farmer who farmed the only herd of Nazi-engineered cows in the country has been forced to cull the number of his herd after they became too aggressive and tried to attack his staff.
Oh, my God.
Genetically engineered Nazi cows.
Nazi cows.
Nazi cows that had to get culled. I was like, I gotta share that story because we've talked about all those topics, just not all together.
Oh, jeez.
So
they're too aggressive, more aggressive than other cows.
I guess. Yeah, and then they had to kill them because... let's read the Nazi cow story. I don't know. You know what? Yesterday there was just really nutty news.
Yeah.
Maybe this is a big distraction. I saw the stock market started to tank because of gas. Ha! Watch, here it comes, free fall. And my the stupid computer, this old one here, old school Vista with the big memory hole leak that I have to reboot every couple days. Otherwise, all of my services are not available because I'm out of memory. And honestly, I can't be bothered. The clock still works, and so does the temperature gauge, and that's all I really care about. But there's my little stock ticker that usually runs at the bottom, and right now that is service not available. But I had heard yesterday they had a big drop of 300 points. Probably, I'm going to assume that it has dropped much more than that, but I don't know. So we might have to check that a little later. But right before Christmas, I saw that the Dow broke 18,000. Again, all-time high. And we talked about this. Our GDP is up higher than it's been. We had the best quarter in 11 years or something. Isn't that what they were saying?
Something like that, yeah.
And I don't know. Again, the friend that I don't agree with on anything and I had a big discussion a few nights ago over the Christmas New Year's break, firing charts at each other over all the financial indicators. And I still say that they're fudging the numbers.
I know they are.
He insists that everything is fine, and can I see that the economy is better? And I'm like, no. And as a matter of fact, from all those years ago, all my friends had jobs back then, and none of my friends were complaining. They were all still looking at me going, Jules, you're a whack job. But they're not now. You know what? Everybody's got hard times now. And he's trying to tell me that there's no inflation. Like, what are you talking about? Food prices have gone through the roof.
Yeah, we were just talking about how much a steak costs.
Exactly. And how every time when you go to the store for one thing, it ends up costing $50.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, they're telling us all that, but I'm not seeing it. At least not in the Northeast, that's for certain.
Oh, I'm not seeing it here either.
And you know, last year I had looked at the economic indicators per state. And California, because of the fracking, was actually one of the top 3 or 4. I think we had, who's the one that just had that big indigenous oil area? Was it Wyoming? Where they have the oil fields on the Indian lands and it's like flowing everywhere. I think it's Wyoming.
I think it is.
And then Texas with all the fracking. And then California with all the fracking. Those were the 3. And I think Utah was slated as an up and coming. But the top 3 were all to do with oil. Well, I got to tell you guys something. Over the Christmas break, I actually hit the res. And the res up here, I don't know. Up here, I think they play us because they just watch what it is at the pump and then they drop it 5 cents. You know what I mean? So they just scrape all the profit. But down at some of the other reservations in New York, they don't quite do it that way. So the one I was at last week had gas for $1.91 a gallon.
Wow.
That's cheaper than in Texas.
Jeez.
$1.91, and that's in New York. But remember, the Indians don't make you pay tax because the Indians don't pay tax. So I'm paying at the pump here in town $2.89. Still,
we're still paying over $3.50 here.
No shit.
No shit.
That's all taxes, Zorie. That's all taxes.
And they're talking about adding more taxes to it.
Yeah. I just saw that. California is going to go up at the pump more. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And next will be
and your eggs.
Call it a
your eggs.
Tax.
No, we already got that. Over $10 a pack in New York. Yes.
Oh. Yeah,
that's why Eric Garner died, right? Remember that?
Uh-huh.
And I don't care who says that it wasn't about untaxed cigarettes. It absolutely was about untaxed. That's what, you know what? In New York, they are Nazis because you're not allowed to have them because it's not good for you.
Yeah.
We tax them so you won't eat them. That's why we were going to tax soda pop, too. Remember?
Well, because it's a sin. They call it a sin tax.
Right. They're sin tax. I mean, they have them for casinos. They have them for hotels.
Yeah.
That's an easy way to say if you make enough to buy cigarettes and booze, they're going to put it on booze. They might have here put it on booze or go to a hotel or play at a casino. Well, then you can pay for your sins. I mean, it's ridiculous. And
it is ridiculous.
That reminds me, though. Now I know the story, and we'll do this after the Satan Nazi evil
cows.
Cow, yes. There was a good story about Pope Francis that I had actually run across a month or two ago when it first came out, but it struck me as something that, I don't know, just at the time it was late, late at night, and I was like, oh, you know what? That's a good story. I posted it, and actually it's probably the best story UCY's Facebook page has seen in months. So we'll look at that one too. Okay. All right. Anyway, let me get back to the Nazi engineered Satan cow. The cows were imported in 2009 by farmer Derek Gow, who bought 13 genetically engineered cows and bulls to his farm in Broadwoodwidger, West Devon, known as Hacker Super Cows. Now, come on.
Oh, God.
Who would buy, especially knowing the history of the Nazis, who would go to Germany and buy genetically engineered super cows? Remember, we were just talking about I was watching that Russian documentary about Hitler with my dad, right? Looking into the space program. And that's the one thing, I mean, Hitler was into the whole occult thing, you know.
Right.
He had them out searching the world looking for ancient artifacts that would gain him power to take over the world. And, you know, they were trying to create a super race. And I mean, that really was the beginnings of eugenics and genetic engineering and all that other crazy stuff. So, I mean, knowing what we know today, and it makes me wonder now. We got a lot of the Nazi scientists, didn't we?
Yeah, we
Look at all the crazy genetic engineering, end of the world, end of biological life shit going on.
If you eat a super cow, are you going to become super superior?
No.
You know, is it going to make you smarter or more powerful?
It's a Hacker super cow. Known as Hacker super cow, the breed of cattle were developed in the 1920s and 30s.
What?
By German zoologists Heinz and Lutz Heck, who were commissioned by the Nazis to create a special breed of cow based on an ancient species of wild bull called Oryx. Now, guys, sounds like Oryx, Auroc.
Oh, okay.
This sounds just up the lines like what's his name? The Temple of Doom. What's his name?
Oh.
Come on! Do. You know, that's what, when they went up against the Nazis and they were searching for the relics. Wasn't that during that time period, 20s and 30s?
Was it the 20s and 30s?
I'm pretty sure it was. They were still searching for pyramids and stuff. Maybe it was a little earlier than that. Maybe it was in the teens.
Yeah, I think it was.
World War One versus World War Two. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't matter. Just know that they're German hacker super cows developed during the 20s and 30s by the Nazis.
That's nuts. That's out of the ballpark. I'm sorry. But.
Yeah, it sure is. The pair, so this is Heinz and Lutz Heck. The zoologist. This is, by the way, this is out of RT. This isn't out of like crazy world news today. The pair used the descendants of the wild cows to extract, quote, wild genes from their genomes and breed them with regular livestock, creating fearsome-looking, muscular cattle with lethal horns. And they look pretty scary. This bull's got a big ring in his nose, too.
Oh, jeez.
The experiment proved incredibly successful, and the cattle were eventually used in Nazi propaganda.
Stop it.
I knew this was a good story. Large numbers of the cows were destroyed after the defeat of the Nazis, but 13 of them remained, and they were transported to Gau's farm in 2009. It was the first time this species of cow, which actually became extinct in the 17th century, had set foot on British soil since Roman times.
Oh, God.
But Gau has been forced to cull 7 of the 13 cows due to their increasingly aggressive nature. We have had to cut our herd down to 6 because some of them were incredibly aggressive and we just couldn't handle them. The ones we had to get rid of would just attack you at any chance they could. They would try to kill anyone, and dealing with that was not fun at all, he added.
Holy shit.
Gau said that the rare breed were by far and away the most aggressive animals I have ever worked with, and he hopes that now his herd has been reduced to 6, that he can begin breeding the animals for meat. What?
Oh, and they make people mean. And aggressive.
Yeah. Wait. What? Why would you be breeding Nazi genetically engineered 1920s experiments for people to eat?
Holy shit.
I
mean, it's still what's in that cow goes in you.
Well, and I mean, they're already looking at, how some of the and I don't even know. I mean, the Dr. Huber interview that I've talked about so many times where they fed the alfalfa to the horses and the cows, and then they ended up with all these stillbirth abortions, and Dr. Huber was finding that not viral, not bacterial, not fungal in the soil around the crops, and he found it passed through the placental tissue, and they find glyphosate in the blood of humans. So they're pretty certain that we're absorbing it not only from our environment, but also from what we're eating.
Yep.
The farmer says, jokingly, it says, I'm not sure how appealing Third Reich sausages would be. But he added that they tasted like venison. He also called the Nazi selective breeding program truly primeval. Importing the cattle has been an interesting project for us. They have such an unusual history. There was a thinking around that time that you could selectively breed animals for Aryan characteristics, which were rooted in runes, folklore, and legends. See, I was like, this is like everything we've been talking about, and we were talking about the whole cattle issue, too.
Oh, jeez.
Tied it all up nicely. Nazi killer cows from outer space.
God.
Says, while the cattle have little commercial value, see, now I'm going to argue with that. I think they'd have great commercial value. You could turn them into superstars.
Yeah.
You shave a little mustache on him.
Yeah.
He's got a ring in his nose and a mustache, man. You could probably make a whole bunch of posters and banners.
Oh, God.
Say no to Nazi. Gao says that they were imported for conservation as the cattle produced their own body weight in highly fertile dung each year. Oh, but wait, isn't that global warming?
Yeah, wow, no kidding, huh?
Like overly poopy cows. Gao said that after his battles with the cow's aggressive nature, he did not regret the project. Well, I wonder who ate the other 7 cows. Well, he said they were tasty. They tasted like venison, so he must have.
He must have, yeah. I mean, can you see it in the supermarket? You're going along, super beef, super Nazi beef, on sale this week only.
Yeah, they probably wouldn't market it as Nazi beef, but they might sneak a little swastika into the logo somewhere. Right? Isn't that like the Johnson & Johnson with the moon? You've seen that, right? The little evil moon.
Yeah.
Anyway, here
and were these cows all white?
They got fuzzy, kind of blondish hair, yeah, and big horns, and the one picture they have in a ring through its nose. I will, if I can find the page, I'll drop this in the chat. Hold on, here we go.
I think I could have lived without Nazi cows.
Really? I don't know. That story actually woke me up. And talking about aggressive, that reminds me of another story I saw. This was the attack deer.
Oh, no.
Did you see that one the other day? No? Somebody was out hunting. I think he was bow hunting. And he hit a deer. Here it is, Wisconsin. Yeah, this one's... Oh, and there's a video! Hold on. You know what, though? Because a lot of times they just do a transcript underneath, so I'm going to... why don't we play the video first in case they do the whole story, then I won't have to repeat it.
Okay.
Hey, nothing like being easy at 9:30 in the morning. Save my voice. Yes, 6:30. Oh, by the time the show was over yesterday, my throat hurt so bad. Remember, you've been sick for 2 weeks and just about lost your voice. Don't go screaming for 2 hours.
Yeah.
All right. And there we go, ringy-dingy. All right, Wisconsin hunter attacked by deer he had shot with an arrow. And this was a doe, mind you, not a buck. That's what I found surprising. She was pissed. And they don't say if they killed her or not, which kind of made me mad because I was hoping she got away. But if he nabbed her with an arrow, I'm going to assume she didn't. Oh.
I promised my crew a long time ago I'd keep them alive.
You don't need the commercial. Hold on. Otherwise, I'm going to have to read this. Oh, it's a new Brad Pitt movie!
Oh, boy.
Yeah. He's in a... Looks like a World War I war zone. All I know is he was good in 12 Monkeys. All right, here we go.
Authorities in Fond du Lac County say a 72-year-old bow hunter is recovering from injuries after he was attacked by a deer he had shot with an arrow. A sergeant with the Fond du Lac County Sheriff's Office says the man was bow hunting Friday night with a crossbow when he wounded the doe with an arrow. While tracking the animal, the doe reportedly leaped out and struck him in the leg with her head. The man, who was hunting with family members, was taken by ambulance to a hospital. His current condition is unknown.
Wait a minute. He was struck in the leg with her head, yet he just hit it with an arrow, and they took him to the hospital.
So the deer probably fell and hit against him.
But he was 72, so maybe that's how we get the deer attack. I've never heard of a doe attacking, number one.
Me either.
The doe leapt out and struck him in the leg with her head. Now, it's not like deer bite. I mean, yeah, they can nibble. You probably don't want to
Yeah.
get your fingers in the way of them eating
Food.
all of your vegetables or flowers at night. But on the other hand, they are not meat eaters. So it would be like a cow biting your finger. I mean, it would probably hurt, but it probably wouldn't rip the appendage off.
Right. Huh.
Anyway, the poor deer. So, of course, they did not say whether or not the deer died. I'm
sure
going
it
to
did.
assume that it did, especially if he got it with a crossbow. All right. So, wait, we were talking about Nazi cows.
Yeah.
And there was something earlier that you had mentioned while we were talking that had made me think about the story with Pope Francis. I don't know if you caught this one or not. This was back from a month or so ago. Hold on, we'll open this up. But it struck me as interesting. Now, in the very beginning, I thought Pope Francis actually was maybe... Oh, it's from October, end of October. That Pope Francis was maybe just saying things just to say things. But he said way more things than just in the beginning of saying things. That's made me think that this dude definitely has some different ideas from any other pope that I've ever studied in history or literature or any of my religious travels. But if I were him, I'd be having somebody eat my food first before I ate.
Oh, really? That bad?
Well, because he's been saying things that are just against thousands of years of papal rule. You know what I mean? Like things that, well, here, for example, this title, Pope Francis declares evolution and the Big Bang Theory are real, and God is not, quote, a magician with a magic wand, unquote.
That was said by the Pope?
Yes.
Holy...
That's what I mean. I'd be getting myself hiring a little altar boy to do my taste testing for me.
Ooh.
Yeah. Well, remember, they just had that big fight. They all the priests went against him because he put it up to a vote, and I think they totally voted against him because I remember the videos were coming at me, and I think he lost. He put up the vote though to allow gays into the church. I don't know if they were voting. I don't know if they were voting for to allow them to. No, they couldn't because I think
Well, they allow
our
pedophiles,
priests. But
you know.
I wonder, and that wouldn't include women. So I'm pretty sure actually he was just looking to allow them to come for communion and be a part of the church. And I mean, I'm not religious in any way, shape, or form, so please don't get me wrong. All right, I've spent way too many years studying this shit to fall for it.
I know. I see that, like the Pope said, and I just immediately turn off. I don't follow
Well,
it.
see, I always did until Pope Francis. See, when I found out Pope Francis, before he became a pope, was a bouncer, that got my attention.
That's true.
I was like, huh. And he used to, I mean, he was down in South America, so you got to imagine he probably, you know, he's probably seen lots of fun.
Yeah.
Get on the other side. You know what I mean? And he was
Yeah.
a bouncer to pay for a seminary school. Hey, you know what?
That's a great guy right there.
Absolutely.
You know?
I worked my way through college. That builds some real character. So
sure does.
and then I see him saying stuff like this. I kind of have to pay attention. But it makes you wonder if he wasn't put in that position. Because, I mean, for years, everyone's been going, screw the church. Not everyone, but a large majority of people. And, you know, I had this conversation with Dr. Simon one time. Here's the sad fact of the matter. I think religion, and I think we all pretty much agree, is a form of mind control, right? It's for those people that need some sort of...
crutch or something.
Well, not even a crutch. Like, they need some sort of framework to be able to then construct their version of reality around. Okay, and there's got to be a boogeyman, and there's got to be a good guy, and it then helps you find your compass as to what is morally right and wrong, right? And a lot of people need that. They need someone to tell them what to believe, what to do, what's good, what's bad. They don't have that ability to not need. I mean, I got to tell you, I get lost sometimes. And I don't know how I find the light again. And I don't even know if I'd call it light, but you need to have a compass. You need to have a direction. You need to have your shit figured out, and you need to see the path forward. And if you can't find that, then that's where, you
wander around lost. Yeah.
Well, you wander around lost, but that's where a few intellectual friends come in very handy. Because that's when I have long discussions about things that really have sent me spinning. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I have times where, we just see some stories or uncover some scandal that just like completely, like playing a board game with the spinner. I'm like, oh, and I don't know which way's up anymore.
Right.
But a couple good intellectual discussions, bang, I'm back on it. But there are some people that they don't know how to do that. Maybe it was because they weren't taught critical thinking. They weren't taught to question everything when they were growing up. They were just taught to listen and to follow. And
to do what you're told.
Right.
Right.
Or else.
And that's where the devil comes in.
Well, exactly. Or that's where the wrath of some magical man sitting in a throne in the sky comes from as well.
Right. Fear of God.
Right. So, I kind of lost my point now. But anyway, I almost think at times, I know. So I was talking to Dr. Simon one time, and though I think, at least for myself, I've sort of figured out the social reasons for religion existing historically, because remember, that's where my interest was. That's actually where I was going to spend my life, doing female Indiana Jones, digging up ruins and studying ancient history. Okay, that's where my passion is. Not here. This stuff, like I said a long time ago, has stopped being fun. This used to be the conspiracy shit that I would sit around late night and I'd be drinking a beer on a Friday night going, oh, look at this crazy stuff.
Yeah.
This used to be fun for me. It's not anymore, because now it's not conspiracy.
Right.
Okay? It's the dystopian nightmare come true. This was not what I ever wanted to see be real. Okay? These were my nightmares that were based upon science fiction movies.
Mm-hmm.
So, getting back to Pope Francis. Now I really did lose the point.
They're having someone eat his food because he's going against them.
Well, yeah, and there are lots of stories. There's that list. Now, I don't, it's too early, and I don't have it in front of me, so I don't really want to start talking about it, but there is that list, historically, where they've listed all the popes.
Mm-hmm.
We're at the last one, whatever that list was. Was it some ancient list? He is supposed to be the last one. And remember, too, the last pope, the pope before him, had to resign because of all the pedophilia scandals.
Yeah.
And they said that was the first time that a pope had resigned since like 500. Which was interesting, because normally it's lifetime. Remember Pope John Paul? That poor dude, he was sitting there drooling in his drool cup until he snuffed it. That was the end of him. But anyway, let's get back here. The theories of evolution and the Big Bang are real, and God is not a magician with a magic wand, Pope Francis has declared. Oh, I know. So when I was talking to Dr. Simon, here's something that I really, in my long, deep travels and thoughts, came to this conclusion, that even though I don't agree with religion or someone telling you what to think or believe,
right,
there are people that require that. And I have noticed through my lifetime, the last 40 plus years, that there has been, along with other things, but there has been a loss of morality in our society. And along with that loss of morality has also come the loss of the nuclear family. Remember learning about the nuclear family? A mom and a dad and the kid, 2.5 kids and dinner and whatever. Yeah. So that all fell apart. Now, some of that I see as being, and I would have argued with claws out just a few years ago about this. But again, like I said, don't ever say no, because if you get, I hate arguing too, but if you have somebody who actually has intelligent arguments, who can provide you proof and show you historical evidence as to why they believe what they believe. I actually have changed my mind quite a few times, and one of those things is about the women's lib movement.
Oh, yeah.
And, I was raised by a mother who, when she came here, realized she had been brainwashed by the Catholic Church all of her years growing up, and she stepped off the plane in the USA in the middle of the 60s, okay? She had an epiphany. Need I say more? Seriously, coming from a very strict upbringing to the U.S. in the 60s must have been a real game changer. But that's where she had realized she'd been brainwashed. And you know what? That's how she raised me. That's why I was never to take anything for face value, and I always was to ask questions, because you get lied to.
Yeah.
And you get manipulated and controlled. But my mother became a very staunch women's libber back in those days. Equal rights. You don't need to have kids if you don't want to. You could go to work and you could do anything a boy can do. And I lived that life. I absolutely lived that life. I was never getting married and having kids, because you know what? I'm happy that way. Actually, it was fun. But, sometimes
Things happen.
Here's what they don't tell you is when you've reached the top of the mountain and you're standing there waving it going, yay, I made it. You're standing there all by yourself.
Yeah.
And nobody else gives a fuck.
Yeah.
So that was kind of where I got to. I was like, oh, this is no fun. Because nobody cares. At least your family has to pretend to care.
Yeah.
But, and my mom and I had this argument actually over Christmas, because she, and then she started posting like women's lib stuff on my Facebook and stuff. And I'm like, stop it. Because the thing is, you have to admit, by convincing women that their place was not in the home, not taking care of the kids, not making sure that there was dinner and the laundry was done, all the things that traditionally were considered women's duties. And hey, I don't like doing that shit, and I think he should help as much as I do. Okay? Mm-hmm. But the fact that they, and again, remember, Bernays was involved. I mean, this was all this Bernaysian. We needed to have 2 cars and 2.5 kids and keep up with the Joneses. And the only way we were going to do it is if we had 2 wage earners in the family.
And paying 2 taxes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Don't think that this didn't have ulterior motives.
Oh, yeah.
But what it ended up doing, the 60s, the love fests, which, then I started really reading about just psychological operations and brainwashing. And, that's actually a topic I need to get back into studying, because I got into it pretty deep. And I was like, I used to think that stuff was absolute, utter fantasy bullshit. It's not. I mean, it is not. There are so many ways to manipulate, control, and brainwash. And we are just so dumb we fall for it very easily. Very
the television was their greatest tool. It got into every household.
Mm-hmm. And it still is. And now the mobile devices. I mean, I'm going to tell you what. Cell phones are the bane of the future. I mean, right now they're being used to track us and listen to us and suck you away from your real life into this fantasy world 24/7 at your fingertips.
That you can't even socialize with people.
No, you can't. But here, let me get back to where I was. So by taking the mother out of the home, requiring you to be happy with all of your things that you don't need, it required 2 incomes. But as this progressed, and free love and rock and roll, and I'm not saying that any of those things are wrong, lots of pot smoking, it caused people, though, to question the man, to question the machine, to say screw religion, which didn't keep up with the times. And they distanced themselves from all that. Now, like I said in the beginning, talking about this Pope Francis article, anyone who knows me knows that I think religion is bullshit. But in the discussion I had with Dr. Simon, I asked him what he thought about my thoughts about this. Because here, even though I was kind of happy that the Catholic Church lost a lot of their influence. I think it damaged us greatly as a country because the moral fabric that there at least existed somewhere in the underbelly was held together by those people who couldn't think for themselves, that had to be told that they gotta be good or there was eternal damnation waiting for them. Get it? Right?
Yeah.
The people who couldn't think for themselves. But now that there's no threat of eternal damnation, it's anything goes.
Yeah, that's true.
Nobody's afraid of anything. Right? What? So you're going to end up in jail? So? You know what I mean?
Everyone
That's
ends
not
up there
eternal.
anyway.
That's
Yeah.
not eternal damnation. You know, that's all I'm saying is even though some of these things looked good on the surface, when you really looked at them, the loss, you know, the mother moving out of the home into the workplace and religion being, what's the word I'm looking for? Not, it didn't serve the needs of the people. It was too staunch. It wasn't keeping up with the times. It wasn't keeping the young people, and that's what happened.
Yeah.
It was alienating people versus bringing people together. Now, I've read a lot. When you start really looking into sound and physics, and it's all mathematics, people, all of it. So it's not magic. It looked like magic when we were primitive people. But if you start understanding science, physics, and the laws of nature, you'll see that it's not magic. You know, the abilities of sound, and I'm still telling you guys, sound is a very important key.
Vibration.
Even beyond vibration, sound, each note on a scale is math, okay? And it exists throughout the universe. Each planet actually resonates with its own note. Our bodies have their own harmonies from all of our different orchestrations that are going on in our bodies. We all give off a note. You know, I have theories about discordance and harmony, and I think that you would probably, if your systems, and it even makes sense when you think about it logically, if your systems within your body are not working together in harmony, and they all have a resonance.
And with the planet.
Well, and I think that's part of our big problem right now. You know, but I got off the topic again. I don't remember what I was saying before that.
Well, have you seen that experiment they do? Like they pour salt on this?
Yes, it's cymatics. I've talked about that 100
Isn't that
times.
beautiful?
100 times. Yeah, and it's beyond that.
Yeah.
You can even look at, we talked about the rice with the water and the emotions.
Right.
And just expressing hatred versus love and caring, or the forming of the snowflakes as different words, or ice crystals as different words or sounds or music are played or spoken, and then they flash freeze it, and the harmonious sounds and the happy sounding words tend to make a very symmetrical shape.
Right.
Beautiful shapes. But in the areas where you're saying things like, I hate you,
Negative.
and things of that, they're all like disjointed and they look diseased. And, I really think that there's a lot to positive thinking. And I remember now what I was going to say. So, religious rites, I always thought it was all mumbo jumbo. But if you start looking at some of the experiments that they've done with sound and some of the experiments that they've done with mantras, when you go to Tibet and you go sit with the monks and they do their om, there's something to that. And when you get a large number of people all doing that together, they're actually,
power.
When you look at what happened, if you haven't seen that rice experiment with the water and the different emotions expressed on the rice, and then they let the rice sit in this water for a few weeks and watched how fast it got mold and decomposed, you will be very shocked. And that experiment has been reproduced many times over. It's all over YouTube. People have been doing this. I've seen it for the last year or two. But when you look at that and you realize what negative emotions do, and you look at the freezing the water after you say positive and negative things, and you look at the differences in the shapes, and you remember that our bodies and the planet are like 70 or 80% water.
Yep.
Okay, you will see how, at least even, it's not even theoretical. There's some science here, and I mean, look at even how, like, the moon being far enough away still affects the tides. Don't think it doesn't affect you. We've talked about
affects you.
We've talked about how people go crazy on full moons.
Right.
Remember, my grandmother owned a bar. We used to see it every time.
You always knew without even walking outside there was a full moon.
Well, I even know just how I feel. I get this feeling. I mean, I know when there's a full moon, I just know. But
I always had fun on full moons. I don't know.
Yeah, I start to, I don't know. I start to have more creative thoughts, I think. Like I start digging down rabbit holes I haven't been down usually. Yeah. I feel rejuvenated.
Yeah, it does affect us.
But, when you look at all that, and then I look at some of the research that they have done, and they've looked at the power of prayer for healing. Like, I always thought that was stupid. But you know what? They've actually, in looking at some of these Tibetan monks and showing with their Om and the group prayer and moving to different, like, wavelengths. Literally, and now looking at all this DARPA research and how they've discovered, like, light and sound, they can tap all these different areas in your brain. Guys, I'm telling you, there's something there. That religion, I think, was hijacked. It was hijacked just like our government was. Okay? Somebody wanted to come in and
powers.
Yeah, they wanted to come in and take over because they would give them the ability to rule. Just like what we saw when I was talking about in Hitler's day with the occult. That's why he wanted all the ancient relics. Because it would make him powerful so he could rule. But I think religion was hijacked. And then they started telling us what the interpretation was of each ancient script and what they meant and how we were to practice it. Well, that's bullshit. If you go back to before Christianity, back to, I think they were like the Gnostics, right? That was like in the days of Stonehenge. And they had a lot of ideas that had ancient knowledge and being able to control the secrets of nature. Don't think that all that shit isn't in the basement of the Vatican just so you and me don't get it. You still there? I think we lost Zorie.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going, I'm here. Can't you hear me? I was on mute. Sorry.
So anyway, let's get back to Pope Francis, because then I want to move on. I'm not, like I said, I'm sure we lost people talking about religion. I hope you're here, Road. Road always hangs up. But you know what?
Know.
It's an observation. It's actually been many years of observations that I am spewing out right now. And trust me, I've studied a lot about religion and culture and society and archaeology. That was my thing for many, 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 many years. All right. So here's my question. Was Francis elected into this position because he was more of a hip type pope and they thought that might bring the youth back to the flock? Or was Francis put in that position to fulfill destiny? The fall of the church with the last pope who destroys it all. Like, I just find it interesting that there were ancient writings that had actually listed out. Was that Nostradamus? Don't tell, because I don't know. I think some of Nostradamus's stuff. A lot of that is just somebody's interpretation. Right. That's like them interpreting the Bible that was interpreted 8 times before it ever made it to English by a scribe who was the only one who knew how to write, who was translating based upon the context of the words around the other words and his own experience. So I'm going to tell you what. What? Throughout that time, right. I did actually an entire semester on that very subject and the translation of the Bible. Yeah. It's anything that's in there. It's interesting Because if you read it and you turn it like 2 degrees and just put another little spin on it, then it starts to all make sense. Like, maybe angels weren't angels. They were flying things. Maybe they were, they were heavenly. Okay, well, maybe heaven is outer space. I don't know. Back when I was a teenager, I actually started to think, what if we were an experiment and just a big petri dish, and they put us here? And they were way more advanced than us. I mean, look, we finally made it to the point where now we can create life. That doesn't make us aliens. That just makes us a little more advanced, though not morally, by the way. We do not deserve to be gods, and this is one of my big things. I think we will destroy ourselves because we have not reached a moral fortitude to be responsible for creating life.
That's true. But, the thing that always got me is, how do you explain the drawings of people with space helmets on
they're all over. And I mean, you could even get to like ancient aboriginal cave paintings. If you've ever seen those are all the ghost heads with the big black eyes, right?
Yeah.
That entire cave. I think that is one of the oldest out of historically, globally, is that aboriginal painting inside the cave. But even all throughout the Middle Ages, look at all the paintings. What are those flying hat things in the back? How come every single painting, and not every single, but I've seen large numbers of paintings of the Virgin Mother and baby Jesus, and up in the little corner, like the one, they were almost insinuating, and this is like Betty and Barney Hill, they were almost insinuating that there was one with like this little round spacecraft in the corner shining a beam at the Virgin Mother.
And they couldn't fly in those days.
Hell
so why would they
no.
even think of drawing that?
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, you go then through all the ancient Native American stuff and whatever. And
I mean, there's no experiment that went bad and they said, screw you, and left.
Well, I just saw something on TV the other day when I was at my parents' house where some mainstream boob was suggesting what I've been saying all this time, that I'm pretty sure they've turned us into some sort of galactic reality TV show, and we're just Earth. And you know what? Us with our stupidity and our wars and our murder and killing got top ratings in the solar system. Absolutely. When we see spaceships and those little ball things floating through the sky, I think that's what they are. HD cameras. But I mean, literally, someone said that on mainstream TV the other day. I was like, no, they have not been listening to Before the First Cub. All right, so let's put a cap on this. We're going to get, finish up Pope Francis.
Okay.
All right, so we're going to start over again. You know what's so great about this, too? It says, Francis goes against Benedict the 16th's apparent support for intelligent design. Do you know, my original profile pictures on all social media had happened to be, I'm trying to remember what it was. I have a t-shirt, actually, that's perfect. It's got an ape, and then it's got a plus sign, and then it's got a gray alien, and then it's got an equal sign, and then it's got a human.
There you go.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I think my original profile picture was it was a patch, and it said intelligent across the top and design across the bottom, and it had the little UFO with the Darwin fish legs, which I thought was kind of funny. All right. Anyway, Pope Francis declares evolution and Big Bang Theory are real, and God is not, quote, a magician with a magic wand. That's
something coming out of a pope's mouth.
I'm sure it knocked people out of their chairs.
Yeah.
And remember, too, I think he's the same pope. Was it him or was it the one before him that declared that if we had contact with people from another planet, that they would be considered children of God as well, and we should welcome them into the flock?
I
Which is messed up because they've said for a long time if there ever really was contact, it would like destroy religion as we know it. Because I mean, it's
and we'd attack it for sure.
Well, yeah, but that wouldn't be religious. That would be the Nazis in charge.
Yeah, that would, huh?
Speaking at the Pontifical Academy of Sciences, the Pope, we should petition the Pope to start releasing like FOIA documents out of the basement.
There you go. Yeah.
I wonder if he could do that. Speaking at I didn't even know there was a Pontifical Academy of Science.
I didn't either.
Isn't that kind of an oxymoron? Oh, it's one of those cackling old lady mornings. Oh, speaking at the Pontifical Academy of Sciences. I hope we don't offend people. The Pope made comments which experts said put an end to the, quote, pseudo-theories, unquote, of, creationism and intelligent design. But see, they believe intelligent design is by some man sitting in a chair with a magic wand. I believe intelligent design is by some big, large, blank, staring, gray creature in a flying saucer-shaped craft somewhere. It actually doesn't have to be, but somebody much smarter than us on some other planet far away, and they can look however they want. They don't have to have big eyes and be gray.
Right.
They could have 12 tentacles.
They could have no body at all.
Right. All right, the Pope made comments which experts said put an end to the, quote, pseudo-theories of creationism and intelligent design that some argue were encouraged by his predecessor, Benedict the 16th, and, VI, 16th. But Benedict the 16th, wasn't he the one that stepped down for pedophilia charges? It wasn't for him, but he knew all about it.
Right.
All about it, and so he doesn't get prosecuted. They granted him lifelong, what do they call it? Like the other scumbag that's down in the Ecuadorian embassy. Asylum. They granted Benedict lifelong asylum on papal grounds, so he can't be arrested.
Right. Yeah, that's disgusting.
Francis explained that both scientific theories were not incompatible with the existence of a creator, arguing instead that they require it. And you know what? He's probably right. I mean, again, I noticed how he's calling him a creator, too, and not God. Because I think it is, we just put a face on God. But who's to say what God is? God could just be some really advanced race that was messing with genetically engineering and sprinkling life across the universe.
Right, there's science, the way advanced of ours, and put down and watch to see what we do.
Right. We're a big sociology experiment, probably. And like I said, they're probably watching us, and we're Earth reality TV.
Right, and their lifespans go for centuries, so, them watching us is nothing, just see where they go from there.
Right.
And we're probably a disappointment if that.
Well, yeah. But you know what? No intervention.
Yeah, Star Trek.
Yeah, exactly. What was that called? They had their oath. I don't know.
No intervention. Yeah.
Oh, no, they had a phrase for that.
That's true. I can't remember what it was.
Francis explained. We talked about that. When we read about creation in Genesis, we run the risk of imagining God as a magician with a magic wand able to do everything. But that is not so, said Francis. And wait, there's more. Because when I started studying cymatics, and yes, if you've never seen it, go to YouTube and plug in cymatics. I've said this before, Cymatics. There's a couple different things that they do. One, though, the 2D is putting sand on taut, like a speaker or a drum, and then putting different notes through it. And each different note creates a different shape. And it's a beautiful, symmetrical shape that looks mysteriously like the ancient Indian mandalas.
Oh, wow.
The mandala designs that they used to do in those, and they still do in those sand drawings while they're sitting in their monastery doing their bongs and ohms. Interesting, huh?
Very. I never connected the two before, but yeah, you're right.
The second I saw them, I was like, oh my God, they're the mandalas.
Wow.
Then I saw another experiment where they had a beaker of water, and they put a substrate in there. In the case of the experiment I saw, they put cornstarch into the water. And then they started passing notes through the beaker of water with cornstarch. And the cornstarch was really, it could be anything that would make the water more viscous, right? Instead of being as liquidy.
Right.
And once they put the viscous material in there and started putting the notes through it, something mysterious happened. It actually lifted up a shape out of the liquid that then showed locomotion with what almost looked like legs walking across the top of the fluid. And I was like, holy shit. Somewhere in the Bible, didn't they talk about
walking on water?
Well, no.
No?
In creation, God spoke, and there was, speaking is sound. And what are two of the major elements on earth? Water and dirt. And isn't that what man's supposed to be made of? Water and dirt. He puts them together and he speaks and there's life. And I was like,
oh no.
That is pretty interesting. And we might not quite be there yet. But I almost see that there could be science behind it. And again, it's sound. Check it out. It actually, and then they started doing all these other experiments with viscous material, and you're going to see that all of the standard biological shapes of and forms of locomotion were formed, like a snake, the way they swivel back and forth. It was like all the natural forms in nature. Now, come on. And that's the one thing I found about natural law. Like when you really start studying the basic math, and the math of space is not basic, but it all comes down to pretty colors, which are wavelengths, which are sounds. You know what I mean? It's all connected, and it's all basic physics, science, math. That's all it is.
Yeah.
It's not magic. And when we finally get to the point where we are at that scientific level, and it's not even complicated. Maybe the mechanics behind it is, but the basics, when you see it, are simple. Very simple. And it's beautiful. And I don't see how all this time together, and I've spent my entire, this is what I want to die and know. That's it. That's all. That is what my goal is. I need to know. And if it's really that simple, then that didn't happen by chance. There absolutely was 100% some grand plan, some grand construct. They've also talked about, there have been quite a number of scientists now that when they've looked at the universe and they've done all kinds of different tests, that there are all kinds of things, and it's early. I'm sure if I dug for it, I could find it. But there are all kinds of different tests that they've done that have made a whole bunch of astrophysicists come back and go, holy crap, we live in a hologram.
Do you ever listen to Neil deGrasse?
Yeah, he's actually pretty good.
deGrasse
does a few, he was doing a few science shows for a while. I don't know if he still is. He definitely is not as much of a New World Order shill as
right.
Michio. Michio really disappointed.
He really turned, didn't he?
Mm-hmm. It's all about money, baby. Mm-hmm. Or maybe they threatened him. Who knows? But he did. He sold out.
Yeah, he did. But I like Neil. I watch a lot of his videos, and he just blows my mind.
Yeah, we actually played a clip of his back, 6-8 months ago, where he was being interviewed, and I think actually Salvaner sent that to me. He did, where he was being interviewed, and he actually was talking about them discovering whatever the math was, that it looks like we're in a holographic universe.
Yeah, I watched that.
Uh-huh. So it's very interesting. And when you think about that, then you, like, I don't know, my thoughts start going to, like, the Matrix.
I know,
and if we had a big, super smart, super alien race that could make something that big is an alter reality, it's possible. And we'd never know that we were in a fake universe, would we?
Mm-mm.
Especially if it seemed infinite.
Yep.
But what's interesting is the fact that all of the laws seem to apply. And I mean, we have some weird laws. The dark matter is something that they're really digging into, and they're finding all kinds of strange things. But I just saw that they found the key that unified, and I'll have to dig into that, that unified, I don't remember the name. Damn it. Oh, the Schrodinger's cat with the wave and the particle and the quantum mechanics and being able to exist in two states at one time. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Like, that was always one sticking point, and that's when you start getting into quantum mechanics and things get spooky, as they say. But they found something that they believe that it is true. It can exist as a particle and a wave, and guess what? That is sound and light. People, let there be light. Isn't that what they said? And he spoke it into existence. I'm telling you, the translations are wrong. I think if you just turn it a few degrees and think about it from another different perspective, a little more intelligent, not prehistoric perspective, add a little bit of math and science to it, and you go, holy shit.
Yeah,
there
that's
was
true.
some truth in there.
Yeah, because you figure when they were interpreting that, they were going by their experiences, and compared to today's experiences.
You're right, and what their environment was, and they didn't have a context for what they were seeing or hearing or, you know what I mean, experiencing. Yeah. Oh, the great snake in the sky, as it was a comet, you know, with a tail.
Yeah, yep, exactly.
All right, so let me finish this, because we're going to spend the whole show on Pope Francis. When we read about creation in Genesis, we run the risk of imagining God was a musician. He was a musician. That God was a magician with a magic wand, able to do everything. But that is not so, said Francis. He added that he created human beings and let them develop according to the internal laws that he gave to each one so they would reach their fulfillment. The Big Bang, which today we hold to be the origin of the world, does not contradict the intervention of the divine creator, but rather requires it. Evolution in nature is not inconsistent with the notion of creation, because evolution requires the creation of beings that evolve. The Catholic Church has long had a reputation for being anti-science, and I gotta tell you, creationists are the biggest whack jobs on earth. Sorry if you're listening. But I don't know. I've seen so many and to put that shit into my school, absolutely not. I saw that they were trying to push that in Tennessee. And why would you teach kids that? I don't teach my kid anything about religion. You know what?
I
Let her figure it out for herself. That's what I did. You know what? My mother gave me a construct and said, here, if you're interested in it, then enjoy it. And if you're not, then I'm not going to force you to be.
That's what I did with my daughter. I did not, because I think it's a form of brainwashing. I did not force her in any church. She experimented with a lot of churches.
Me too. I read about all kinds of religions and read all their creation myths and understood where they came from and then tied it to the societies that they were involved in and how that manipulated their sociological structure. I mean, it's very interesting. Psychology is more interesting than creationism. I hate to say it. The human animal. But yeah.
It's a strange creature.
It is a strange creature. But we can be manipulated very easily if we're not paying attention.
Exactly. And that's the key word there, paying attention, so that you recognize when they're trying to manipulate you.
Yep. The Catholic Church has long had a reputation for being anti-science, most famously when Galileo faced the Inquisition and was forced to retract his quote-unquote heretic theory that the earth revolved around the sun. Now, again, for those of us who pay attention to history, we tend to understand better. And yes, the Catholic Church called Galileo a heretic. Thank goodness they didn't burn him at the stake.
Right.
But Pope Francis's comments were more in keeping with the progressive work of Pope Pius XII, who opened the door to the idea of evolution and actively welcomed the Big Bang Theory. In 1996, John Paul II went further and suggested evolution was, quote, more than a hypothesis, unquote, and, quote, effectively proven fact, unquote. Yet more recently, Benedict XVI and his close advisors apparently endorsed the idea that intelligent design underpins evolution. The idea that natural selection on its own is insufficient to explain the complexity of the world. And that's one of the things that I was saying, but that still doesn't mean it was some magical man sitting in a throne, because there is intelligent design. And it is very complex, but it's also very simple and beautiful. But all the same laws apply, whether it's micro or macro. That means we need to be, and that's where I was getting to before, talking about the holographic universe. When you are in a contained system, that's the only explanation for how the laws are all the same. If we weren't in some contained system and it was just all chaos and random, maybe on Earth all the laws would apply, but in space they might not. And I mean, the laws are a little bit different, but they're still very similar, and they work on the same basic concepts. Gravity still exists. You know what I mean? The speed of light still exists. We are in a closed system. We are contained in the same fishbowl. If outer space were a different fishbowl, there'd be different laws up there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
That's why I do kind of believe that maybe we could be in some sort of holographic something.
Yeah,
because how would those laws would not evolve randomly? I mean, there is order out of chaos. If you've watched any of the chaos experimentation that they've been doing for years with like tornadoes and vortexes,
right,
things of that, or vortexes. I think there is a plural. Vortices. There we go. If you've watched any of that, you will see that even though it gets all crazy, eventually you'll start seeing patterns. Patterns will develop.
Well, there's everything like the vortex. Yeah, you're right. Like that continuing circle. Look at a drain that goes down. It's in a spiral. That's everything.
Called the Coriolis effect. That's because the planet rotates.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm just saying that they use vortices when they're looking at chaos theory, let's say. They use all kinds of different things. But chaos theory, where it's all random events. But even random eventually starts to show a pattern. So when you start to see patterns everywhere, is it random chance? Well, it would be see, here's the thing. Why do all female creatures, and there might be one or two oddball out there, but most female creatures on the planet Earth are the ones that nurse the young.
Right.
And have the ability to bear young. Now, I think that is it the koala, the kangaroo? No, I think that's the mother. Platypus. There's one or two wacky creatures. I think there might even be one male animal out there somewhere that might give birth, but there's not a lot.
The seahorse.
Yes, the seahorse. Yeah, exactly. I knew it. Yeah, but the seahorse are oddballs, and so are jellyfish. There are a few creatures out there that just
Platypuses.
really well, yeah. And the platypus, I still think when they genetically tested the platypus, and we finally got around to looking at its genetic makeup, they actually found reptilian DNA in conjunction with
Mammal.
I don't know if it was a mammal. I mean, here's one of the things that it lays eggs, which was odd, but it's got a duckbill.
Mhm.
But you also know through dinosaur records now that dinosaurs had feathers. So there's a connection to birds and reptiles
Mhm.
back ancient. But still, most birds, well, birds do lay eggs, don't they?
Yes. they
And
do.
do snakes. But then they got claws and they got fur. They don't have feathers. The platypus had, was it chicken? No.
It had
No.
a bill and it had webbed feet, but it had a furry body. It's just a massive.
Yeah, I thought it was like some ancient project, genetic engineering project that went bad, and he's still kicking around there somewhere. But anyway, let's not get off the topic. So
Okay.
I don't remember what the point of that was. Let me finish.
Female. It's always the female.
Oh well, I mean, what are the chances that, like, across the board, animal wise, creatures have a nose and typically eyes? There are some that don't, but most have two eyes.
Mhm.
They have a way of hearing. We all have similar designs for, breathing
Sight and all
and
that.
lungs.
Yeah.
At least land creatures. I mean, did we all come from the same single-celled organism that then, like the way they taught us with evolution, that then the fish that sprouted legs and walked on land and turned into a lizard? I mean, are we all lizards? I mean,
Were we
at
all lizards in the beginning, huh?
well, look at the embryo.
yeah.
Take a look at the embryo, right? We got a tail.
Mhm.
And you really can't tell a lot of difference between an embryo from a human and all kinds of other creatures when they're first forming. And what's
Right.
also interesting is with that cymatics experiment, if you start looking at the designs and shapes and you put different notes through them, and then you watch a cell divide from the very beginning, from 2 to 4 to 8 to whatever, 8 times 8, right? 64, whatever it ends up being, as it divides and divides and divides, it actually starts to look like the Mandela and Venus, that whole Venus thing, love.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. If you haven't looked into it, I would recommend one night when you're like kind of bakey,
Yeah,
and
bakey was a good
ethereal
word.
feeling, open-minded.
Mhm.
It's a good YouTube surf topic.
It's a good place to let your mind wander to.
Well, and I got to tell you, there's not a lot of bullshit there. There was just a lot of really interesting stuff that makes you go,
Yes, and then you just, then you get out. I get out there. I mean, I've thought of, like, ever since I was a little kid, I seen the world like the stars were little holes punched in a big ball instead of stars. It's just, I don't know. And light was being filtered through those holes.
well, that's not the case, but
I know. But it stuck with me for a long time.
yeah, I mean, that's pretty neat idea. We know, though, what's interesting, here's something I always thought, is because all of the elements that make up life exist in space as well, and you see things like the Cat's Eye Nebula. I know, first time I saw that, I was like, wow, that looks like a big fucking eyeball staring into space. But here's the thing. All the same elements, and probably even many more, that are on Earth that life encompasses. I mean, we all have the same elements in our bodies, the carbon, the nitrogen, the water, all these different, and water, hydrogen, oxygen, they all exist in space. Our timeline, our life cycle is dictated somewhat by our rotation around the sun. I mean, I know science has postulated that if there was life on other planets that had much longer rotational
They would live longer.
or their timeline for life would definitely be different. There would be different forces acting upon them. Time, and time really is kind of a dimension. And aging really is just the breakdown of biological life. Your different things stop producing the
Right.
youth, whatever. So anyway, if you get into space, though, where the timeline in space is millions and billions, I sound like, oh, damn it. God, my brain is like, it's trying. I need another cup of coffee. My half cup is cold, and I think that's the problem. But Carl Sagan, millions and billions of years. But if you look at space and the billions of years that nebulas have been floating around out there since they exploded, if you look at the fact that all the building blocks of life are out there, I personally think space is just like the oceans. It's teeming with microbial life that we can't necessarily see without some sort of special telescope or whatever. Or, hey, maybe that is when you saw the tether experiment on YouTube from NASA's own cameras, and that tether broke with the high voltage tether, and you start seeing all these creatures swarming the high voltage line floating in space, and you go, what the hell is that? It literally looks like you're looking through a microscope at a slide with like a drop of water on it, looking at the paramecium and the amoebas floating around. That's what it looks like. If they didn't tell you that was space, you would think it was a microscope.
You would.
And so when I look at all this, and then I think, well, we have all the elements, the building blocks of life in space, and things in space just move real slow. Who's to say that big freaking eyeball nebula doesn't have some sort of sentience? Just at a much slower, grander scale. And so it's imperceptible to us.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, who's to say that isn't, or there aren't nebulized life forms out there? How do we know that? We don't
know.
So, all right, I'm done. I'm done now. I've gotten I had so many things to talk about today, but I guess it's okay. It's Tuesday. And it's only 14 degrees. Woo, we went up a degree. All right. Yet more recently, Benedict the 16th and his close advisors had apparently endorsed the idea that intelligent design underpins evolution, the idea that natural selection on its own is insufficient to explain the complexity of the world. In 2005, his close associate, Cardinal Schuschborn, wrote an article saying, quote, evolution in the sense of common ancestry might be true, but evolution in the neo-Darwinian sense, an unguided, unplanned process, is not. And you know what? I'm going to kind of agree with that. Because this is what I was trying to say. Why across the board are we all similar? Why do we all have 2 eyes, 2 ears, a nose, a mouth?
Yeah, why do we all evolve the same like that?
Right. If there was no... And I mean, here's the thing. Maybe a bunch of us would have all evolved the same, but there probably would have been different groups. Like that one over there's got 6 legs, not 2. And I know they talk about survival of the fittest, and that really is kind of how evolution works. I mean, if it's useless, it falls off. Or, if you didn't quite get it, you don't quite make it.
Right.
But, why even in the archaeological record, in the fossils, do we not find ancient humans with 6 legs? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
or,
you're right.
Bizarro, like Cyclops. Where's the Cyclops?
With the 1 eye. Huh.
So that still makes me think that somewhere along the way, somewhere in the beginning, there had to be some sort of master blueprint.
Right.
That everything kind of followed. And from there, it's like setting a chemical reaction into motion and then letting it go to see what happens. That's pretty much what
Yeah.
happened, right? They dropped
It
a
is.
couple drops into water and they said, "Let there be light." And that was the end of that. They
And here we
walked
are
away.
today.
Here we are today. Yes. Giovanni Bignami. Is that really a name? Bignami. Giovanni Bignami. A professor and president of Italy's National Institute for Astrophysics told the Italian news agency, quote, "The Pope's statement is significant. We are the direct descendants from the Big Bang that created the universe. Evolution came from creation." Well, it did kind of. I mean, if we believe the Big Bang, and hey, maybe they didn't even give us water and drop a few drops in. Maybe they just said, "Okay, compress, put you in an enclosed," and I mean, think about it. If it were a hologram, maybe it's a hologram that contains all explosions. So it's like putting a grenade into a bulletproof, explosion-proof box, right?
Wow, yeah.
So it contained it all, and then they just let it go, and they set it into motion to see what would happen
And
with,
here-
these elements. And then here's
Yeah.
another one with these elements. What would happen if silicon were more prevalent than carbon? That's actually what scientists say. I think I talked about that. If there were ever another, what element in the periodic table could life be based upon besides carbon? And they thought the other one most likely would be silicon, which is why it scares me about this whole transhumanist thing.
But
Would that exactly be what they were creating? Synthetic life based upon silicon? Yes.
but so we find out scientifically proven how we started out. How is that going to change stuff?
It doesn't, but it actually makes the crazies go away. These
That's
people
true.
that live in this
Yeah.
fantasy world of believing bullshit just because they're told, and they never used intelligent thought to think about how ridiculous it sounds.
That's true.
People like that are why we are in the problems we are. I hate to say it, people. And that's like my whole relationship with religion is very double-edged sworded, if that's a phrase. Because like I was saying earlier, I really track back the loss of religion at the time when we had the loss of the nuclear family that then caused the degradation of our morals as a society. Where
And it's
now
true.
anything goes. And there's no big boogeyman. Because before, at least, the big boogeyman would threaten you, and he's watching you 24/7. It's been replaced with the fucking NSA.
Yep.
Right?
There's no loyalty.
The NSA is
anymore,
the big
anything like
boogeyman.
that. Yeah,
who's
he is.
omniscient omniscient and omnipotent.
And they turn more or less the family. Remember when a wife couldn't testify against her husband
No.
and stuff like that? They've taken that connection away in a lot of ways.
Well, yeah. The thing is that the family unit has fallen apart.
Mm-hmm.
Respect for elders doesn't exist.
Right.
Okay? The opening a door for someone, walking an old lady across the street, caring about other humans and other life on this planet doesn't exist anymore. It's been replaced with greed. The 7 deadly sins, people. One of my fortes in studying in college was medieval literature, and I love Chaucer. And Chaucer dealt with the 7 deadly sins. Avarice, lust, greed. Right now, our society has them all. It's a plague. We don't care about others like we used to. The sense of community, it's all gone.
Sodom and
And
Gomorrah.
it's all commercialism that did it. The self-centered, narcissistic, throw your mother under the bus to get the last morsel of food, you greedy fuck. That's what it's become. I mean, look at Black Friday. Every
I know.
year.
My God.
Those disgusting videos. That's what's happened to us. So my love-hate relationship with religion is just that. Because we lost religion, we're where we're at. I mean, I don't think religion kept us all in check, but I think it was back then in simpler times was the moral stitching that stitched it all together.
Well, look at how politicians use religion. You can't tell me they're religious.
Oh,
But
no.
they all use
Hypocrites.
church.
They're all hypocrites.
Yep.
Go to church and say how much you love your brother and then cut the next asshole off on your way home from church and
There you go.
freaking road rage him. You know? I mean, you see that all the time. People are just lying sacks of shit most of the time, and it's disgusting. Oh, sorry, guys. I don't know. I got sleep last night. I think that's what happened.
Okay.
All right, and it started with the Nazi cow.
Yeah, that cow again.
Nazi cows to creationism. I think that's what I'm going to title this episode. All right. Do we even need to read any more of this? I don't know. There's only a couple more paragraphs.
Okay, finish.
These Italian names kill me. Giorello, professor of philosophy of science at Milan's University, told reporters that he believed Francis was, quote, trying to reduce the emotion of dispute or presumed disputes with science. Well, Francis is about all... You know what? What I kind of like about him is that he sort of got my idea. Can't we all just get along? And like I said, it doesn't matter what color you are, what religion you are, what country you're from. You can be an asshole being any color or any religion or from any country. But you can also be a nice person. You know, just because you were born in a certain place to a certain lineage does not necessarily mean that you're
better than anyone else.
A dickhead.
Yeah.
You know, when people just blanketly point and say things about groups just because that's bigoted, and I am sorry, but I have no tolerance for that. Okay? Like I talked about in an episode from, I don't know, a month or so ago, I always looked at my cats. Remember, I have family members in all kinds of different countries, okay? My family is international, my one side. I traveled internationally when I was young. We went to go visit my family. My mother pulled us out of school, and we went to school in other countries, okay? I got it a long time ago. And when I was growing up, I really tried to put things into context, and here's the way I looked at it. I have cats my whole life. I'm a big cat lover. My kitties love me, and I love them. Animals talk to me. Animals trust me natively. And I love animals because animals aren't backstabbing assholes. You know, animals are animals. And they love you, especially your pets. They love you just the same, regardless if you're sick or you look like shit. You know what I mean? They don't care. They love you because you're you.
Right.
They're very simple. It comes down to the basics of things. They live by basic laws. The laws of nature. The laws of nature that are beautiful, that we forget and we're disconnected from. But animals, when I look at my cats, and growing up I had 5 cats. 5 cats and 2 dogs. And 2 kids. Growing up I had a black cat. I had a black and white cat. I had a blonde cat who was long-haired. The other ones were short-haired. I had a tabby cat. And let's think. Oh my God, that was Susie, Sammy, Jamie, Alex. Oh, and Bridget, the calico. Calico long-haired. So we had 2 long-haired cats. You know, like I said the last time I talked about this, I didn't like the calico cat any less because the calico cat looked funny and had black and white and brown fur versus the blonde cat, because the blonde cat looked Aryan, you know, getting back to our Nazi connection.
Yeah.
They were all my kitty cats.
Yeah.
And they didn't act any different because their hair was different colors, or when they had to go to the vet and go get that horrible operation, they shaved their tummy. Their tummy was different colors too.
They all still get along.
And they all got along, and they all love me, and I love my kitties just the same.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't matter. And it didn't matter if my kitty came from a shelter or if it showed up on my doorstep with half of its face missing and starving, because that was Alex. He ended up being the sweetest, and he was a huge, starving, half his face missing and infected tomcat. With the paws, he'd walk so far that the bottom of his paws were all worn off. And he sat there and let my mother pour raw peroxide into his face that was full of cinders and infection. It looked like he'd been hit by a car and dragged across the road. A tomcat with a stranger, and he sat there and purred as my mother poured peroxide into his face. That cat was the sweetest cat. He loved babies and children. He used to spend his day traveling around the neighborhood, visiting all the little kids, and would come home with little love notes all taped to his collar. He used to hang out with all the skateboarders next door at the half pipe, and they used to put bandanas on him because he was the coolest cat on the planet. Alex was awesome, and the cat, he had a 36-inch waist.
Holy
and a 17
shit.
and a 17-inch neck. He was a monster.
That sounds more like a dog.
He did. He acted like a dog too. We actually think he might have been like a Maine Coon cat. We don't know where he came from, but he definitely was abandoned, strayed, and injured. But I mean, and that's the thing. So if what difference does it make, Mike? You know what? The cats that actually came from the scrappier places ended up being the sweetest cats.
Mm-hmm.
Because they appreciated it more. So when I look at just all this fighting that happens and infighting between groups and shit that people say, don't blanket statement things until you met somebody.
Right, and you learn, when you meet, like, people, they have family, they love each other, just like you do.
Right, we all want the same things. Mm-hmm. We want our kids to be happy. We want to have a somewhat comfortable life. We want food and shelter. We want to have some enjoyment and smile and enjoy nature. Mm-hmm. I mean, that is evolution. And for as much as you don't want to accept it, we all do live on the same planet. And we all kind of came from sort of the same places.
Yep. One race, the human race.
Right, which I never got where they decided that there are different races on this.
I know, me either.
Because a race would be like a gray versus a human.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. We all have the same blood when we breathe, okay? Nobody here, I have not met a green-blooded person yet, except for maybe the royals.
Yeah.
But they're different.
They're lizards. They don't have blood.
Yeah. Did you see actually Prince Andrew now is implicated in a sex scandal?
I've seen that.
Yeah, that's going to be bad.
I seen that this morning for the first time.
Anyway, let's continue the end of this. Despite this huge gulf in theological stance between his tenure and that of his predecessor, Francis praised Benedict as he unveiled a bronze bust of him at the Academy's headquarters in the Vatican Gardens. Wow, I didn't know they had Vatican Gardens either. Is that like the Rose Garden?
Maybe.
No one could ever say of him that study in science made him, and his love of God and his neighbor wither, Francis said, according to the translation by the Catholic News Service. On the contrary, knowledge, wisdom, and prayer enlarged his heart and his spirit. Let us thank the Creator for the gift that he gave the church and the world. See, now when I get into that about pontificating, I go, wah, 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 wah. But I think we should be showing and giving thanks to Mother Earth. For anyone who thinks that we are separate in our system and our ecosystem and our energies that we put out are separate from the planet are very mistaken.
Very.
We are just a part of a huge system that works together. And when it's in disharmony is when we end up with problems. And right now, it sounds like a whole untuned orchestra.
Yes.
All right. So, there you have it, Nazi cows and all.
It's all the Nazi cow's fault.
Blame it on the Nazi cows and Bernays.
Bernays, yes, always Bernays.
Well, Bernays is like the root of all evil.
Mm-hmm.
Here, I'm going to give you guys that one. Here I come
All
to
right.
cough. Here I come to cough up fur balls into gack. Yes, SLC. That is the one issue with cats. And remember, cats do not do well when you give them their own apartment. I have already proved that with my own experiments.
With your basement underneath?
Yes, my crawl space. They end up being little pigs.
Yes.
And they
Filthy
don't clean up after themselves. And they're lazy.
Yeah.
Okay, so where do we go from here?
Oh.
Did anyone see the open air urinals in Australia?
Open air?
Yeah, they were testing them. Actually, someone had posted a story. It was either Drew or maybe I can scroll down. Hold on, if I can find it. Yeah, I think it was Drew. It was Drew. Open air toilets on the Gold Coast in Australia, and they were doing like this beta test. And maybe I can drop if you're not in chat, just search open air toilets Australia, because you're gonna go, oh my God. Like, who in their right mind, and I don't care even if you didn't have a shred of modesty, who in their right mind would be taking a dump in public with little kids staring at them and people with their iPhones filming them?
No way.
Take a look. I just dropped it into chat. Roll over that and take a look. There's two guys taking a piss and someone taking a dump, and all they have
The sidewalk?
it's out in the open. It looks like it's some sort of port, maybe. Like out in, like maybe a boardwalk or something.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Oh,
And
my
they got
God.
the central part there is covered, so there's like a little door, so around your midsection, from like your mid stomach to your mid thigh, has a little door, but everything else is open. So
That's
they could
crazy.
see your legs, they could see your pants. Like in that picture, the dude's pants are around his ankles, and he's sitting down smiling. I'm like, oh my God, little kids
No
looking at
way.
him. So
What is
anyway,
the purpose there?
well, I almost thought that it's some form of like dehumanizing, like the unisex bathrooms that they're trying to force down
Right.
everybody's throat. You know, I mean that stuff. The lack of privacy. You don't deserve privacy. You don't need privacy. Look, we all do it, so let's share. You know, I don't know, but there definitely is some sickness there. I personally
There
like
is.
privacy. Okay?
Yeah, I do too.
I like to think. It's a good thinking spot. So anyway, I did a follow-up because when I saw that story, I was like, no shit. They are not going to push this now. So I did a search, and there was an update a couple days later. Gold Coast, open-air urinals to be screened after public criticism. Thank God some Australians still aren't crazy.
Wow.
The Gold Coast City Council will screen off the so-called open-air urinals that are being trialed in Surfers Paradise after a public backlash. The blocks of the new urinals have been put along two popular party strips. Well, I guess if you were tanked, you might not mind. And, if you've ever been in New York City and needed to piss after you've been out drinking, you'll know there aren't too many public bathrooms.
True.
And if you go take a piss in an alley, you probably will get an indecent exposure fine. Anyway, they've been put along the popular party strips at Cavill Mall and Orchard Ave. Oh, here we go. So I was right. To try to stop drunken men from urinating in shop front windows.
Oh, shit.
Well, that's what
They have that
happens.
many drunken men and walking around the streets?
Well, remember, it's Australia. Good day, mate.
Yeah, that's...
Let's go have a Foster's. Trust me, my family lives there. They can drink beer with the best of them. Counselor Lex Bell said the The loos. Oh, yes, and they call the bathroom a loo, by the way.
Yeah.
The loos were offensive, but it was better than having people piss in the streets. He said that drunken men had been relieving themselves in shop front windows after leaving the party strip. I am not very enthused with the design, but we have decided to add additional screens around them so that they are more acceptable to the public. Well, yeah, like, what about a porta potty?
Yeah.
Right? I don't think we needed a new invention for public loos. The responses to public feedback, but also now we are not going to open them until midnight.
Okay, so little kids
People don't have to pee until midnight, of course. Yeah, so little kids aren't looking. There's also the problem of some ladies using them, and they are not designed for the ladies.
I was wondering about that.
However, he said, it was less of a problem for women as they mostly used the toilets in the nightclub before they left the premises. Yes, but having been a former lady in a nightclub, standing in line for a half an hour while you have to pee because all the ladies in the bathroom are doing their hair and makeup as the men's line was zipping through. And then I'd have my friend stand in front of the door as I snuck into the guys' job. I had to pee so bad. Yes, I would have to say that the ladies deserve an open air urinal too.
Yeah.
However, Counselor Bell said the urinals were initially opened last Friday at 8:30 p.m. However, usage times were changed to between midnight and dawn because of the complaints and the fact that younger people were still on the streets earlier in the evening. Yes, like the little kid standing here watching the dude sitting with his pants around his head.
Right.
That's the time we need to target, after midnight. Very few people who have been offended would be out and about at this time. Yes, remember, in countries like Australia, they do worry about the public becoming offended.
Yes.
We cannot arrest such people. We don't have the power. See, now in New York, they will. They'll ticket you.
Yeah, they will.
Or they'll get you for public lewdness or something of that nature. We cannot arrest such people. We do not have the power. So the thought was, if we put urinals in places where the inebriated people have to stagger past, they may use them.
That's logical thinking, if you look at it that way.
That's like if you watch the cat guy and they call him in because they got a problem cat that pisses all over the place. It's exactly what they tell him to do. Put a litter box where he pisses. And it works every time. Oh, my God.
So they weren't so dumb after all. It is pretty smart.
Yeah. He said that the new screens would conceal, quote, almost the whole person, unquote. It is less offensive to have urinals than it is to have people peeing on the street, he said.
Well, that's true. At least, you know.
Oh, when people are staggering from nightclubs, they won't seek out public toilets, even if they are there. Oh.
That's true. When you gotta go, you gotta go.
Phew. Wow, that made my lungs hurt.
You know, I like the part about we don't have the power.
To arrest
our
them.
cops sure do.
Well, they do, though. They're passing, if you listen to Brandon's show last night, they're passing all kinds of new crazy laws in Australia as the New World Order has marched right in the door and taken them by surprise without them even realizing it.
Like it did us.
Yeah. Well, I think we saw it coming. But
well, a lot of us did, but a lot of people still don't see it coming.
It's true.
Yeah. You know what I think that blew my mind? And then especially nowadays when there isn't a day go by that we don't see police brutality somewhere, right? Well, now the Fraternal Order of Police lobbies for new federal hate crime law, and it says the 300,000 member Fraternal Order of Police is demanding that the U.S. Congress and President Barack Obama act now to expand the federal hate crime statute and add police officers as a protected class.
Yeah, well, you know what? That's going after all these stories exposing their bullshit.
Uh-huh.
How nice is that? Let's have to ass kiss the offenders.
Yep. That just blew my mind. I mean, what? We're the bottom of the totem pole, the citizens, the very bottom, that matters the least.
Yeah.
What about our protections against them?
Well, unfortunately, I think that a lot of just like Occupy, how it kind of got co-opted and ruined. I think that this hands up, don't shoot protest thing really went off the tracks. Did you see what this this last protest in New York City was all about? Going in on Sunday and abusing people sitting with their family in restaurants in New York having brunch.
No, I didn't see it.
Yeah, I was reading actually a story about that yesterday, reading some of the tweets. And I was really disturbed by that. Like, why? This isn't about color. This isn't about race that doesn't exist because we're all a human race. This isn't. Brutality exists across the board. I mean, I don't know. We've been covering these stories now for a couple years on almost a daily basis, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what state you're from, and it doesn't matter what color you are or what your nationality, your ancestors
Right,
were.
they don't
You know
care.
what I mean? They don't give a
they're
shit.
not prejudiced. They will beat up anybody.
Exactly. So the fact that they've now again made this like a black-white issue I mean, honestly, I really think that that's being pushed because the race shiv is an easy button to push.
Yep.
And so they keep like redirecting this to make this a race issue to then start fights about it. But hey, I'm not biting because you know what? That never was an issue for me.
Nope.
Remember, the kitty cats have different.
Right.
Or you know what? If you're not a cat lover, then look at dogs. Because dogs are all different colors too. Did you ever love a dog worse or less or more because of its fur color? No. You didn't love a dog when it was an asshole, like when it shit on the floor every day. And you had to clean it up, and it didn't figure out that getting tapped on the nose with a newspaper and its face stuck in the shit meant don't shit on the floor. You know what? Then you go outside. Then you are ostracized. Then I want nothing to do with you. Okay, that's how it should work with people.
It does. They push the race card. I mean, because they're beating up white people and Asian people and everyone. They don't discriminate.
Not at all. You know, actually, I heard a great interview yesterday that Daniela got to me like 10 minutes before airtime. Thank you, Daniela. But it was great. It was an interview with Larry Pinckney, no relation to Reverend Pinckney in Benton Harbor, but it was talking about Reverend Pinckney's case. But Larry Pinckney was, I believe, the founder of the original Black Panthers, the ones that actually had a lot of it right, not the new Black Panthers that are starting all the trouble. Mm-hmm. And that interview was great. That'll re-air. Actually, her archive is up. It should be on YouTube as well as on their UCY page, ucy.tv/UFR, United Front Radio, or up on youtube.com/UCY TV. It'll be there as well. Or it re-airs Friday night at 10 p.m. Eastern. And like I said, Brandon's show that aired, the new one that aired yesterday, was awesome as well. I highly recommend hearing both of those. But Larry Pinckney was actually calling it out. I mean, there are lots of historical scars right now that have been ripped open, and they're trying to make this a race baiting game. And Brandon, a lot of his shows, he talks about the color revolutions. I mean, that is a tactic of theirs to divide and conquer. And I mean, if you can't get it, then there must be a screw loose in your head. Then maybe you've been drinking too much fluoride. Get it? I mean, we're all in the same boat now. Hey, I'm not a millionaire, and neither are you. So guess what? We're on the same team.
Yep. And people just can't face that for some reason, and it's beyond my perception as to what are they that blind, that mind controlled, that they can't see what's right in front of their face.
Right. Well, maybe. I mean, they're easily manipulated, that's for sure. But you got to remember, there are red buttons that they push that do that. And here's another thing. If you allow hate to motivate you, then you can be easily manipulated. I don't know if you've noticed that.
That's one thing that's always disturb me is how can, like the KKK, when they're teaching their children, how can you teach your child to hate?
Children don't hate because they don't know any better. Children don't know that anyone is different from anyone else. They just see them as potential friends.
So how can you say you love your child when you're teaching your child to hate? What a horrible, horrible thing to do.
That's very horrible. And not what I want for the future of the human race, that's for sure. I mean, I hate to tell you this, but those people are the ones that should be eliminated through the evolution. Yeah, I'm saying it like the Australians. The evolutionary scale.
And another thing that bothers me is when they call black people African Americans. If they were born in this country...
No, they call themselves that. That's their own correct term.
They're Americans. None of them were slaves, and none of us were masters owning slaves. But how do you become African American if you've never been there and you were born here?
Because that's what they call themselves. I mean, I could call myself a Polish American if I wanted. It's just your heritage to remember where you came from. But that's not a term that was applied. They decided that was a politically correct term, but that's a term. I mean, that's a pride thing.
Okay, because it seems like it's being used all the time. They keep bringing up slavery when it's been gone for so long.
No, it isn't. We're all slaves. That's what people don't get.
Yeah.
We're slaves to the system. I don't want to be in this system anymore. And you're enslaved by the banks. You're enslaved by the taxes, by the money that you got to earn to keep continually paying for property that has been long bought and paid for eons ago. Mm-hmm. To feed the slavery system so they can beat you and tell you what to do. We're all enslaved.
We're paying for it ourselves. Without us, because they don't produce anything. Without us, they're nothing. But yet we keep giving them more and more power.
We keep feeding them. We feed them power. We feed them money. We feed them their right to rule. Hey, you know what? Your right to rule is if you're not doing the job, then you're fired. Like I said many times, come from the corporate world, man. There isn't much mercy. You don't do your job. It takes you 9 months to process an application. Well, you suck.
But
Goodbye.
They don't get fired.
Well,
they get promoted.
Because guess what? I pay your paycheck. And if you ever had me for a boss, you would know I could be a bitch. Do what you're supposed to do. Do what I asked you to do. Do it right the first time. And I'm golden. I don't want to have to look over my shoulder and make sure you're doing your job. I need to wind you up and let you go. That's it.
Tell a cop that you are his boss, that he works for you, and you're liable to get yourself beat.
You wouldn't be telling a cop. You'd be going to your city board and voting the budget down. Hey, guess what? 10 seconds to go. Make sure you stick around. Mr. Kevin Blanche up next.
Bye, everybody.
Tuesday. All right, Zorie, thank you for being on today. Tonight is Tuesday night, so there's all kinds of good shows. Bocelli Effect with Chuck. Primer Time with Michael and Nick. All things apocalyptic. Prepper Chicks After Dark and Anti-Media Radio Live at 11. All kinds of live radio today. You guys, thank you so much for listening today. It was a happy Tuesday. Stay warm. We'll catch up with you tomorrow.